Hey Hunters, HaloZoo here, back for more D&D Magic the Gathering crossover stuff from my sort of content stuff. So we are going to be showing off Planeswalker's Guide to Ravnica. So let us begin. So this is designed as a companion to Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica that adds more player content for all the guilds. So basically the idea is that there were 2 archetypes and 1 new spell plus a reprinted spell. So my idea was basically, add more for all of the guilds, which you will see more about later. So there are 3 relatively new races, total of 7 sub-races between them. And what I mean by relatively new is that 2 of them have been seen before, but would not necessarily show up as quite the same as what they were. And also, they're new to being in base D&D, as they're actually both plane shift races. There's 8 new archetypes for the guilds, for everyone but the Azorius and Golgari, since they had Order Domain Cleric and Circle of Spores Druid, respectively. And those 2 are getting a few changes. Minor changes, to be fair, but they are getting changes to kind of fall in line with this stuff added in this book, and also to just kind of change a few things, as you'll see. There are 49 new spells, including 9 cantrips, which Dimir already got a cantrip, so everyone but Dimir get a cantrip. And there's 4 guilds spells per guild. Dimir, of course, get they get a cantrip, and then also every guild has a low level, mid level, and high level spell. It's just like Tarkir, Khan's Guide / Dragon's Guide to Tarkir. So, speaking of which, 4 of these are shared with Tarkir, so do keep in mind that 4 of these are going to be in both books. There's 11 reprinted spells, 1 of which is in code Thoughts, and the other 10 are all from Xanathar's. And each guild gets a reprint spell now, so it's not just the Izzet getting a reprinted spell. Everyone gets one now. So let's look at the races and sub-races. So there's the Merfolk with 3 sub-races. The Abyssal, Coastal, and Reef, with Coastal actually being renamed from the Green Merfolk, and the Reef being renamed from the Blue Merfolk of Ixalan. Meanwhile, Abyssal is a new sub-race entirely. There's Vampires, also appearing from Ixalan, though they have 2 sub-races which are entirely new, with the Blood Drinker and Mind Drinker vampires. So basically the 2 sub-races are for the 2 types of vampire that appear in this world. So there is that. And then we have the Viashino, lizard people. They are distinct from lizard folk because they actually are not that strong in comparison to their lizard folk brethren. So they have 2 sub-races, Brave Scale and Survivalist. Survivalists are a bit more wise, while Brave Scales are a bit tougher. So there is that. They're also more dexterous, so that's the main thing, is that they have dexterity instead of strength baseline. Let's get to the subclasses, which include the new College of Madness Bard. So basically it's entirely built around causing chaos and havoc with enchantments and illusions. You can concentrate on even more of them at once. So you're kind of good at controlling people's minds and making multiple people go crazy. And you eventually become deadlier for each creature under your influence. So for each creature affected by an enchantment or illusion spell, you actually get a buff and become more powerful. Up next, we have the Spirit Domain Cleric. They're good at dealing with the undead, specifically spirits, and are good at both speaking with them and taking them down. So it's sort of like you're able to be an exorcist and or a spirit talker. So your domain spells include various necromancy spells that deal with spirits. Can also delay and undo the deaths of others. And you can annihilate undead, turn them with ease. So basically you actually improve turn/destroy undead, which is something I kind of added to them as they kind of deal with the undead a lot, so it made sense to give them a modification to that. Similarly to how the Death Domain have control undead, which allows them to take control of them instead of just turning or destroying them. Then we have Oath of Justice Paladin for the Boros. They unleash divine retribution on those who do wrong to you and your allies, which usually includes punishing them, enemies for damaging your allies, and dealing tons of damage at a time if your allies are close to death or dying. So they actually have an ability called Battalion's Wrath, where it does X damage for each ally you have. I think it's like D4 damage per ally, but it becomes a D8 if an ally is below half health, / bloodied if you know 4th edition terms. And if an ally is dying or dead, then you actually deal D12 damage for that ally. And you count yourself too, so you can get like up to a number of D12s equal to the number of allies, plus D8 if you're bloodied. So can scale quite well. However, do keep in mind that it is based off how bad the fight is going, so it can turn a fight around, but not necessarily save your allies from death. And, of course, you can transform it into Angel of Burning Radiance, and you actually get to use your Channel Divinity powers at will during it. So there is that to look forward to if you get to high level. Up next for the Dimir, we have School of the Mind Wizard. These guys master spells that manipulate minds, specifically divination, enchantment, and illusion spells. And all of your spells that manipulate these deal psychic damage. So basically, if a spell doesn't already do damage, you add damage to them. You also bypass immunities for your spells, so Charmed, Frightened, Illusions, and Psychic damage immunities mean nothing to you. You also learn to cast more psychic spells, which is what I've called those three, over the course of a single day. So basically, you just specialize in mental manipulation. It's the basis of it. Then we have School of Magitek for the Izzets. You create a gauntlet that you can cast and enhance your spells with, and also hit people with, because of course you can. You also get a spell slot that, rather than give you an extra spell slot per day, one of your spell slots basically becomes a Warlock spell slot that recharges with a short rest instead of a long rest. So one of your spell slots is replaced by this one, and you can use it more often. And you can eventually overload the gauntlets, which just highly empowers your next spell or attack. Also, yes, this is one of those mechanic puns. I didn't get as punny with these ones. It's not like Khan's Guide / Dragon's Guide to Tarkir, where all the subclasses, or almost all of them, had it. But this one, just a few have them. The Order Domain Cleric literally just gets a new cantrip. I believe that's the only change I made. So, yeah. I just have the images there just because. To show off some Azorius stuff. Circle of Spores also back. Got a few more changes. So, you now have poison or necrotic damage changed to poison and necrotic damage. This is basically to bridge the gap between the two versions. You also have first level circle spells now. And one of your third level spells was changed. Mostly because there's a new third level spell for the Golgari. So yeah. Also, Symbiotic Entity now works with cantrips. It's not just weapon attacks. So it does actually affect all of your stuff. It's not just weapon attacks now. It's your spell attack cantrips. And all your damaging cantrips, actually. So Poison Spray works. All sorts of stuff works now. It's just a change for your convenience more than anything. Then we have, for the Gruel, Way of the Old Times Monk, which I just have to say it's kind of wacky, but they're monks with a druidic twist. That the idea is you are mechanically a monk, meaning that you have abilities like a monk, but flavorfully you are not a monk. You just happen to be a master of unarmed fighting who also has a lot of mobility. And you can also use Ki to cast some druid spells. You don't get many, but you do get some. You can quickly rush around the battlefield as combat begins and foes start falling. And the last ability allows you to unleash your inner beast and just go ham. It's kind of an oddball where I kind of had an idea of what I wanted, and then I just came to this idea. I'm like, what if I took a class that has the abilities I like and then change its flavor to be what I need it to be? So that is what this is, showing that monks don't all have to be monastic masters of kung fu. This is a new type of monk. Next up, we have Circle of the Sun Druid. You have powers of the light to heal and deal damage. And their main mechanic is whenever you cast a healing spell, you deal damage. Whenever you cast a damaging spell, you shield allies. I.e., you do not heal with it, you just create temporary hit points. And do note that these do not trigger off of each other, so basically, whenever you cast a heal spell, you deal damage. Whenever you cast a damage spell, you grant temporary hit points. You do get circle spells, naturally. It's a few from Cleric, mostly. And You also get Sunbeam, Crown of Stars, and Sunburst for free as a few extra circle spells to give you even more light powers. Because why not? Am I right? Then we have School of Biomancy Wizard. Yes, there's a lot of frickin' wizards. There's 3. But mostly just because I felt like it needed to be. So you get some conjuration and transmutation spells from Druid that work under the idea of biomancy, which is the manipulation of nature and stuff. You can summon Crossy once per day. And Crossy are kind of like the creatures at the bottom there. There's all sorts of crazy stuff you can make with them. But anyway, you also kind of enhance your conjuration transmutation spells that summon in enhanced creatures. Basically, you just give various Crossy adaptations. And also, you evolve it, your summoned Crossy, which is basically like you get Summoned Beast with Crossy mutations once per day for free. And you evolve it and adapt it to fit your needs. And yes, I'm making more puns from mechanics. Do not try and stop me. But anyway... and the reason I made Biomancy Wizard is I felt like there wasn't really a good mechanical fit for Simic Wizards, so I decided, you know what? I'm just going to make my own, and this is what I came to. Let's move on to the cantrips. So, once again, not really going to talk about what these do, but I will mention the names. Spook is an enchantment spell for the Rakdos. Transmute Coins is obviously an Orzhov spell and is a transmutation. And I will actually explain this one because it's kind of straightforward. Basically, you just take one type of coin and make it into another. You can also use it to make change, like split a gold piece into a bunch of silvers, or put a bunch of silvers, make it a gold piece, or in a very Orzhov way, take a bunch of platinum, take a bunch of gold and turn them into platinum, because of course you will. It's just one of those that I'm like, it's such a silly spell, but it's so Orzhov that I'm like, I don't like Orzhov, but I'm just the happiest with that. Inspire Bravery is the Boros cantrip, which is an enchantment spell. And I will say this, it does grant temporary hit points. And Spook is basically like a riff on Friends that frightens for a turn. Encode Thoughts returns for the Dimir. It's an enchantment. Creates the Thought Cipher deal. Static Arc is for the Izzet. And it is shared with Tarkir and is an evocation. Arresting Shackles is the Azorius cantrip and is a conjuration that helps you grapple people. And this is also obviously the spell that Order Domain gets for free now. Mostly because it just works, you know? I mean, it just fits what they want to do, so of course they're going to get Arresting Shackles for free. Fungal Rot is a conjuration for the Golgari. Stone Fist is a transmutation for the Gruel that is shared with Tarkir. And I found a picture that kind of fits it perfectly. And you'd punch or throw it. U-Dart is a transmutation given to the Celestia that is basically a standard ranged attack for druids. Water Jet is a transmutation for the Simic that is a jet of water that pushes stuff. Kind of simple, but wanted a Hydromancy spell and didn't really have a good cantrip for the Simic anyway, so it's the one I'm the least happy with, but at the same time it's like, it fits a niche that we don't have yet, so that's kind of what it is. Let's go to the low-level spells next. So we got Maddening Cackle for the Rakdos. It's an enchantment of 2nd level. Bind Spirit returns. It's a necromancy ritual of 2nd level from Tarkir as well that is given to the Orzhov. Or specifically, the Obzon got it from the Orzhov is the more accurate thing. And on Ravnica, you're probably going to be making Indentured Spirits rather than Kintree Spirits, naturally. Lightning Helix is the Boros spell. 2nd level evocation. And it does actually let you heal people. And it also does work kind of like you would hope it does with 2 strikes. And it's actually 1 radiant, 1 fire. So that's one that is kind of... I kind of made a spell around the idea of what this does. And it's right here, too. You also have Shadow Slice, a 1st level illusion spell for the Dimir. Basically just a damaging illusion spell you get early, so you can deal damage with an illusion. Repair Device, Transmutation Ritual, 3rd level for the Izzet. Kind of to go with the Magitek stuff. It's basically a mending on steroids, is what I'd say. We have Absorb, an Abjuration of 1st level that is basically shield for saving throws. That's all it is. Simple yet effective. We got Abrupt Decay, 3rd level necromancy spell for the Golgari, of course. And is an offensive necromancy spell at range. It's pretty hard and destroys stuff. And it also does actually damage objects pretty good, too. Then, of course, we have Savage Punch returning from Tarkir. Or more specifically, I was creating a spell that was a 3rd level transmutation for the Gruel that was about punching stuff. Quickly realized I made Savage Punch, and when I decided to do Con/Dragon Guide to Tarkir, I of course brought that forward. Similar to how I of course brought Lightning, or Static Arc, up to Con/Dragon Guide to Tarkir, as I knew the Mardu/Kolagon were going to need a Lightning cantrip, so just like the Izzet needed a Lightning cantrip that had a range, so they both kind of got it, which is like, it works. Oak Lance, a 1st level transmutation spell. Basically just a single target range damage cantrip, or not cantrip, 1st level spell. Associated with the Celestia. Not much more than that. Meanwhile, we have a transmutation ritual of 2nd level in Genetic Splice. So I am going to say this now. The Simic did get 3 very similar spells over their progression, which is basically just 3 different levels of spells that are used to make / modify Crossy / Simic hybrids. That's essentially all this is. So you have Genetic Splice. And once again, these are spells designed kind of to bring the guild together and make their mechanical identity work in D&D, so you can fully embrace the Biomancer spirit that you want to embrace. So, Genetic Splice is there. It is your rudimentary, basic, add a minor trait to somebody spell. Then we have the mid-level spells. We have Demon Firebolt for the Rakdos, 4th level Evocation. Create Thrall, 5th level Necromancy Ritual for the Orzhov, used to create their zombie things. Justice Strike, a 4th level Evocation spell for the Boros, which is basically a 4th level Smite spell that hits like a truck. We have Shadow Flurry, and yes, that is Shadow Slice. Don't ask questions. 6th level illusion spell, another illusion to deal damage with, though this one is much more deadly at times. We have Create Weird, Transmutation Ritual of 6th level for the Izzet, allowing them to create their weird elementals that combine two opposite elements at times. That's what a weird is, such as you might have like a fire and ice weird. Basically, they're just wacky combinations of elements that the Izzet creates, and this lets you create one. Render Silence, a 6th level enchantment that basically negates somebody casting spells. Obviously, this is an Azorius spell. Recycle Essence, a 5th level necromancy spell for the Golgari that lets you get power from corpses and heal people. Somewhat similar to Grave Strength, but this one actually comes with a heal. So it is a pretty powerful heal too. Might make it an AoE's heal. Don't know yet. I haven't finished these spells yet. So then we have Primal Heart, a 5th level enchantment for the Gruel that essentially unleashes someone's inner savagery. So it does buff them, but it can also be used aggressively to make it where they start attacking their allies by accident too. So there will be some dual utility there. Wind Force Arrow, 4th level transmutation spell for the Celestia. Basically a 4th level damaging arrow spell for the Ranger. It's what it's supposed to be. So this is just filling a gap in the Ranger arsenal that kind of fits with what the Celestia do, because there are Celestian archers that are pretty powerful. So that's what I went with. Then we have Genetic Graft for the Simic, 4th level transmutation ritual. Lets you add a major trait if you want. And before I forget, there is a rule with the transmutation rituals that the Simic gets, that you actually have to have a animal part as the material component that is based off what trait you want to give. For example, if you want to give a creature the ability to breathe in the water, you would need a part from something that can breathe in the water, such as a fish. If you wanted to give it better jumps, you would need a frog part. And basically, you need the animal part and cannot replace this, as it is specific to what this trait you grant is. So there is that material component, and all of these work that way. So Genetic Graft basically allows you to give some more major traits and actually change the anatomy of the target as well, rather than just add a minor trait. It's like, oh, you now have crab legs, or you have a crab arm suddenly. Then the high spells, we have Dreadbore for the Rakdos, an 8th level necromancy that hits like an absolute truck and makes it where they can't be revived. Final Payment, a 9th level necromancy that basically ends someone's life and also gives you a heal. Gleam of Battle, 7th level abjuration. that gives a massive buff to your allies. It is a Boros spell, so it does aid them in battle. Shred Memory, the Dimir spell, 7th level enchantment that basically destroys a creature's mind, dealing psychic damage and making them forget pretty much everything. Cyclonic Rift, 7th level conjuration spell. Pretty much a massive lift stuff into the air, create a wacky storm. Lift stuff and throw it around. It's kind of the idea I'm going for. Haven't made it yet. Not entirely sure what it'll do. Supreme Verdict, 9th level evocation spell. Basically wipes out a bunch of stuff at once. Putrefy, an 8th level necromancy, rots the target away and also creates an area of difficult terrain. Savage Twister, 9th level evocation, a fiery whirlwind. That's the basic idea I got. Kind of straightforward, but devastating nonetheless. Camaraderie, a 7th level enchantment that basically is kind of a teamwork enchantment, so aid your allies in battle. And I will say Gleam of Battle is a bit more defensive, while Camaraderie is a bit more utility focused as well. And also encourages allies to group up, whereas Gleam of Battle is just a temporary buff that I'm not entirely sure how they'll be different, but I'll figure that out later when I actually get to working on them. Then we have Genetic Transformation, 8th level transmutation ritual. Turn someone into a Crossy or Simic hybrid temporarily, and essentially make them into some wacky monster that perfectly fits the battle situation. It's kind of a fun, silly, go crazy type spell. And basically transform something into a wacky Crossy. Or Crossy. That's the idea I'm going for right now. Then we have the reprint spells. So the Rakdos gets Summon Greater Demon. Orzhov gets Sickening Radiance. Boros get Holy Weapon. Dimir has Shadow Blade. Izzet get Chaos Bolt still. Earthbind get Azorius get Earthbind. Golgari have Dance Macabre. Gruel have Erupting Earth. Celestia get Beast Bond. And Simic get Tidal Wave. Once again, the Simic not really getting the best or most flavorful choice. And also, before I forget, since I mentioned Arresting Shackles for Order Domain, Abrupt Decay is the spell that Circle of Spores gets as their extra spell. So anyway, that is it for this video. So that has been Planeswalker's Guide to Ravnica. And I don't have a playtest date scheduled just yet. I'll have to see in the future. So do remember to click down below. There is a Discord called the Subda Discord, which is a D&D Discord server where you will actually be able to see more about Planeswalker's Guide to Ravnica, as well as my other projects. And you will also hear announcements about the playtests, such as the upcoming, hopefully the upcoming Con/Dragon Guide to Tarkir playtest. So stay tuned there for more info. And you can also join the Scaleclaw Discord if you like, for more content from me, as well as my friend Professor Solemn on Twitch. So without further ado, see y'all next time. HaloZoo out.